It's number 19.
Right. We are live. Yes, we are live. Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. This is session 19, which means it's been 19 weeks since myself, Delilah De La Rosa, founder of Depth Worldwide, the subject of this series, Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. What I and Steven are here to talk about. Steven Morrison here to my side. I don't know what will show up on anyone else's screen, but to my side here is Steven Morrison. He's the creator of Spiritual Workout, the foundation to this unconventional wisdom on grief and loss, as well as the author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. So, welcome, everyone. Steven, how are you today? We kind of talked a little bit about it, but
yeah, quite well. Thank you for asking. Just came off a multi-day holiday weekend. I took full advantage of that and had a little staycation.
Yeah.
Last we met, probably, and I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Very, very nice. It's been, I'm definitely feeling a bit tired, a little tired. Yeah, lots of alignment questions and inspiration, alignment, time. Yeah. So let's just go right into it.
Do it. Just to remind everybody, this is really raw, unedited.
Yeah.
We might speak for 32 seconds before we come on and haven't really been communicating in between. And I'm eager to talk about whatever you want to talk about, as usual.
Yeah. That time in between our sessions is definitely used for a lot of applying what I walk away.
That's the idea.
So, yeah, last week I talked about how a little bit of colorlessness, a bit of the sleep procrastination habit, and how I was intending on working that out. There was a lot that came up in both sessions with my other professionals on my care team, as well as what I address here in our sessions, here. And I think we left off with my saying how I would like to use tapping to address this, some of the beliefs that may be underlying the sleep procrastination. Okay. And in case anyone is not familiar with that term, it's essentially like not insomnia. It's not really about having issues with sleeping, like physical issues sleeping, can't get, once you go into bed, you can't go to sleep. It's not that at all. It's that I kind of fight the sleep. Like
to stay awake.
Staying up. Yeah. Even though if I go and hop into bed, I will sleep, So it's not that. It's just that there's, for pretty much like this lifetime has been the case for me. Like I've always really liked that time in the wee hours of the morning. And it feels really delicious. It feels really like my time. And it wasn't serving me so well either, because I just feel drowsy. I feel like time is shorter. Perhaps time being shorter with engaging with the world, which
meaning less time in the course of a day and a week and a month because of
my hours, when I'm on. Yeah, because I'll
like whenever I'm texting you,
Yeah, I'm like sleeping in the
And
morning.
vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. So most people in this society, much of the world are up and about during the daytime,
Yep.
and utilize the morning for a lot of activities. um, I, on the other hand, like the morning, but the wee hours of the morning when the world is a lot quieter and no one fucks with my program and
Mm-hmm.
um it just feels really delicious and scrumptious. And yet it was feeling like I was out of control with it. I was like not in charge of it
Specifically this last week, or
because recently,
okay.
this last couple of weeks, I had this intention, very conscious intention of getting into bed and doing my nightly activities or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And for some reason, whether it was a conscious choice to not go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
or whether it was just something coming up that prolonged the time that I was up, time blindness. Next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. Like, wait, what happened? Like it just felt like it was out of my hands, out of my control, and it was feeling, I mentioned last week, I know it's not popular. It's not it's not a term we like to use. But it felt like an addictive habit, was feeling like, not liking the way it was feeling.
Yeah.
So I made it a point to address that specifically with some of the folks on my care team. And I brought that a bit into our session last week.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I think I made a note that I would utilize EFT tapping to help me with some of those beliefs that may be beneath this resistance to sleeping
Mm-hmm.
earlier or at a
Good.
better time for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's in alignment with my intentions, for vitality, for social engagement,
Mm-hmm.
for my relationship with time, um, all sorts of things that I felt were benefits of making this choice, changing this habit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did this past week. One, I followed what this other practitioner told me to do or encouraged me to do, which was to take out the pressure, of it, in terms of like, okay, what are you gonna do? Like you gotta get into bed. No, it was more of like, look, the big change to do right now is to try to do the things on the to-do list before those juicy nightly activities where you feel like you can unwind or
Are you
receive
doing to-do
inspiration.
list activities in the
Sometimes,
wee hours? Okay.
sometimes, I do. And so with that came some interesting things, because letting out that steam, taking that pressure off, allowed me to get clear on what beliefs I'm believing. And it became very clear to me that I'm believing that the world is unsafe, disappointing, and draining. Um,
Now,
mhm.
my question is, Is this the first time you've looked at the beliefs that undergird the sleep procrastination?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I
No,
didn't.
this has come up. The whole feeling safe and delicious and in my little nook in the wee hours of the morning has always, I've been aware of that
Yeah.
feeling, those beliefs. But I think I felt it more, or I saw it more through the lens of what do I get out of staying up during that
Good.
time, as opposed to what I was believing about the world or engaging in the world.
Well, I think both things are important.
Yeah,
So I would always want to go to the belief set of beliefs that are creating the experience. And so you're just starting to identify them or see
that
them,
part
right?
of it.
That
Yeah,
part of
that
it.
part of it of
And
the
then
yeah.
when we've done that and we see that the condition isn't really changing, that then that's where I go to that question, which is none of us is really ever doing anything that we don't believe serves us, that we don't believe serves us, whether it really does or not. And so that's where, it's really just looking through the lens of choice. Why am I choosing to do this thing that I say I don't want to do? It must be serving me in some way. Let
Oh,
me
of
look
course.
there. So those are two very, you know, the places to look, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I felt that this time around, when I looked at what am I believing about the world,
And tell
it
me
was,
what those were again. The world is.
the world is unsafe,
Mm-hmm.
disappointing, and draining.
Right. Okay.
Draining. Um, and that led me. I tapped on that,
On those beliefs.
on those beliefs. It lessened a bit as in that
A
tapping.
lot, a little bit, just a little bit.
Enough to where I didn't feel tight in my system.
Okay.
Where I didn't feel like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with anything right now. Everything was, I didn't feel like that, right?
Good.
Because that's how I was feeling. And then it led me after tapping, and it kind of, lessened.
Was this a one-off tapping session, or did
Yeah.
you continue? Okay.
Yeah, this was, I would say, one day in the last couple of days,
Okay.
right? So, maybe over the weekend. And that led me to asking the question, kind of also a bit, pointing toward, pointing a bit toward my life intention, which is, can I have a life that is better than what I can imagine, that is better than my fantasy life, my escape? Can I have that life? And of course, in spiritual workout, we believe everything is possible.
Because of this bugger.
Right.
That's what says it. That combined with the other physical idea, and I'm going to go beyond what I know, but just that idea, I think it's the law of energy, of mass and conservation, that all the energy on this planet is already here, right? No new energy is coming, getting created, no energy is getting destroyed. All that's ever happening is energy changing form.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out when we humans, in whatever mechanical ways we can do it on purpose, well, we're always attracting, and we know that. And if we want to attract on purpose and make ourselves a magnet for what, for things that we want to see physically appear in our lives, then that's what this whole practice encourages and takes advantage of, which is our job It's not trying to figure out how and when it's all going to happen, even though we've been trained to do that very well. It's to be super clear about what we want and then stay aligned with it so that that energy, wherever, however it is, can form itself into what we're wanting. When we flail, when we're uncertain, then that's what we get. The more certain we are, the more firm we are, the more embodying of these thoughts and feelings we are, the clearer it is and the easier it is to receive. Right?
The thing that I felt a little bit stuck on, though, when I asked myself that question, was like, okay, everything is possible. And when when I go into, let's say, fantasy exercise, I can intend for everyone.
Okay.
I can,
it's true fantasy. It's not.
I go to the tropics, no mosquitoes. Right. Do you see what I'm saying?
To be clear, you are talking about not an intention, but a fantasy.
Well, in my life intention.
Okay.
I do have the first line. My life is better than anything I could have imagined.
Beautiful.
Right? I think a lot of the time, though, that saying is very figurative.
Well,
for a lot of people. And I'm like, no, literally. Like,
yes. Well, and because you've been in spiritual workout long enough, I'm sure you've heard it and seen it when people will talk about an intention that has quote unquote manifested, right? They didn't have it, they intended for it, and now they have it, right? And what does almost everybody say? Boy, it's bigger and better than I even imagined. Because we let go of how it's going. Wow, that was pretty surprising the way that happened. Wow, this is even more than I was thinking. I don't think I've ever seen somebody truly go through a process of, I don't have it, I want it, go through our practice and whatever practices there are, and then quote unquote manifest it, who didn't offer up some version of that delight and wonder about how it came to be and what it really is compared to what they were intending.
Here's the thing.
Which is why an opening sentence like that to me feels like, yeah, that's probably, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm really meaning it, right?
Yeah.
Like literally better than what I could have imagined, right? The thing is that in my imagination, there's no contrast.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And in this reality, there is.
Do you want to define what contrast is for somebody who
unwanted, that according to your mind is unwanted, doesn't perhaps produce pleasant feelings?
I want to be a millionaire, and the contrast in my life is all my best friends are broke.
Right. Or I'm broke.
Well, that's why I want to be a millionaire, because I'm not one now. Right. Exactly. That's contrast. It's the opposite of what we're wanting, the very thing that ideally, just a little sidebar, ideally, when we are experiencing contrast, that which we don't like, that which is unwanted, that which is unpleasant, then the opportunity for people living consciously is to springboard from that unwanted into intention. What would you prefer to be, do, or have? And start investing precious time and energy in that.
There's also the contrast that there's nothing that one can do too. Such as, like, in terms of changing that specific piece
as a belief system?
Like, for example, I would find it to be a contrast type of experience, what I went through with my mom passing right. And her in agony as she was dealing with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would look at that as contrast, at least at this time in my life, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Yeah, not really
So you
about
started to say that your fantasy life / intention, there's a difference. So I'm sort of going very gingerly here.
imagination. That was my thing. It was like that's where I was a little bit like, okay, how do I reconcile that, right? Because I can't intend for others. I am not the sole creator. I'm a major co-creator. I have a
Yeah.
major say, but
Yes, you
I
do.
don't control everything in this 3D reality.
Correct.
I'm not the sole creator, you
Right.
know.
Right.
I'm a co-creator, and I'm intending on owning that more and more and more, you know. Um and I know that I am not the sole creator in this reality, right? 3D reality. There's a lot of other factors involved. There's also universe, right? The
Mm-hmm.
divine. Um, which if we get into it, I guess, yeah, there's divinity in my creation, my creating too, that
Mm-hmm.
the conscious mind may not necessarily be aligned with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so I understand that. And that's kind of where I was a little bit like, huh, I wonder what's there or how I can reconcile that, because I don't want it to be something where I feel like I have to be in control of everything, in charge of everything in order for my to live a life better than whatever I could have imagined. And that's where I felt like I was sort of believing, you know, is that this is where the unsafe, the draining, the disappointing, the world comes in too, because it's like I don't control that.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. My wariness between fantasy and intention is, wait a minute, what are we talking about here? Intend for things to be this or better, that idea. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I can imagine as of this moment. Something like this and better. That is sort of a normal, regular thing for us. What we avoid, and you and I have talked about this over the years, is creating an intention or desiring an intention, desiring a life whereby nothing bad ever happens, right?
Right.
And waking up every morning in a defensive posture, guarding against unwanted, unforeseen, blindsided kinds of experiences that I don't ever encourage anybody to do, because you have to just listen to the belief system that would undergird the desire for that. Right? So when the words fantasy coming in with intention, that's where I get a little
Right.
nervous. But
Right.
so we're on the same page with that, or no?
Yeah, we are. We are. I guess I was just maybe that's why I was tripped up, because I was trying to see how I could experience that life that's better than whatever I could have imagined if in my imagination I'm the sole creator of everything.
Right. Then it's yeah. Then you're not just intending for nothing quote unquote bad to ever happen, but you're also taking responsibility for making sure nothing ever happens.
It's gonna be God.
That's all.
Yeah.
I thought I was intense. Okay.
I know. No, I mean, I guess I was trying to see how, and the reason why I'm thinking about this stuff is
Mm-hmm.
precisely because my mother transitioned, you
Yeah.
know, and again, it's not like it's not like I was like, this could never, I could have never imagined, that this could have never happened. Like I actually, this was a fear of mine, it was like an active fear of mine. It was a thing that I did not want to experience, and I would feel anxious over that idea before.
Mm-hmm.
And still do.
So what's the belief that creates the anxiety? Or is it the ones we're talking about?
So that brings me to the story. Like a lot of stuff came up in the last week with respect to like thinking about the physical, the non-physical, divine, the mind, heart, intention, imagination, creativity. Like a lot of that was like front and center. Life after death, quote unquote, that came up. So I saw my grandfather, my mother's father, who's going to turn 91 in July.
I remember when it was 90.
Yeah. My mom was alive and well, like hosting
it was right
the 90th
before
birthday celebration. It was literally like weeks before this whole thing went down.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned last session that Salomon, my husband's niece, is sending out a save the date for her wedding, which is taking place in a year. And immediately what came to mind was a lot of things can happen in a year. Like one of us may not even be here, and it brought up a lot of charge, like feeling like kind of like my legs kind of gave out up from under me. And I was like, wait, I can't, I can't go there. Like, yes, of course, anything can happen. Yes, of course, there's a possibility that one of us may not be here. I mean, that's a possibility. Am I going to harp on it? Like, am I going to put my attention there, my focus? A lot of things can change. And I went to my grandfather's because I was meaning to call him since I've been back to New York. But because I was doing the moving out, the moving in with my mom's former apartment, dad's current apartment, I was like, I'm going to put a pin on that because I need to pace myself, energetically and always, I need to pace myself here. This is a lot, and it's funny because I was going to give him a call last week, but of course he beats me to the punch. And he's like, wait, you're here? How come I didn't know? Like, and I'm like, oh my God. My grandfather is kind of a difficult person. I love him. He's just a little bit, he comes off very strong. Like he can sometimes be a little high maintenance. But he's actually like not as crazy with me, I think he is like checks himself a little bit with me because he knows who to do it with.
I was going to say, yeah.
Do it with, It's like, huh? Hold up. I was like, I told you already at 1:00, not 11, I love my grandfather though. Like that man, I don't know what it is, but well, I mean, it's my grandfather, but it's just like, I don't know. There's just some type of connection that I have with my grandfather.
And it's your mother's father, just so people know.
Yeah, my maternal grandfather. So he's like, hey, I was calling. I want to see how you're doing. You're back? Oh my God. And I was like, yes, I'm back. But this is what I was doing, abuelo. I need to like relax, please. And he's like, okay, well, I was calling because I also wanted to see what's going on my meal. My grandfather also for some time, a couple of years, would somewhat live with my mom too. Like he always had a room at this apartment, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel apartment. He always had a room there that he would off and on stay at, It would drive my mother crazy. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Drive my mama crazy. So much to the point. And maybe this is why I have this thing with my grandfather. But so much to the point where, like, he gave my mom the silent treatment for 2 years because she set a boundary. After 60 plus, 62 years of her life, finally set a boundary in her home. And he was like, oh, really? I'm not going to talk to you. Not even on my own birthday. He's scandalous. He's not nice. It's just like, but I love my grandfather. I mean, it just, and my mother loved my grandfather, but he would drive her nuts. Just nuts. So anyway, he asked about the mail that was still going to my mom's former apartment, dad's current apartment. My dad would always say like, hey, did he change of address? Because he's getting a lot of mail still. I'm like, he told me he did, but I was like, don't worry, I'll get it to him, blah, blah, blah. So that's why he was like, yeah, I wanted to like follow up on that. I was like, sure, I'll take it to you tomorrow. And he sounded like he wanted for me to just kind of stop by, it seemed, and give him the mail, chat for a little bit. But it seemed like it was going to be that, but it wasn't that. I actually ended up going to his place with his girlfriend, who's also 90 plus, by the way. She's like OG Puerto Rican, New Yorkican, like was there living there since like the 50s. It's crazy. I feel like I'm in like West Side Story. like seriously, like the stories that she mentions, I'm like, oh,
I saw the movie.
Very OG New York, like crazy. And she's in Spanish Harlem, right? So, oh my God, like it's just like ridiculous. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because it led me to, I was like, I'm confiding you to my husband, but I'm bringing it up here, that I was like, I know that this is not how life works. And I know that there may be some beliefs at work here, but I just want my grandfather to hang in there a little longer because I don't want to deal with another funeral, right now.
So I just have to stop you right there. So much of our practice is about being aware of what we're thinking, being aware of what we're believing, being aware of what we're wanting, such that we ultimately choose all the time where to put our attention.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is your 90-plus-year-old grandfather who you love and want to share more time with and not, have us continue to share time with. You don't have control over any of that, as you well know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So you have a choice. Think about spending the time with him while he's here, or think about him not being here.
That's true.
How is that choice serving you to think just in terms of, well, one day he's not going to be here?
Yeah, I think my heart was feeling heavy that day
Mm-hmm.
when I went to go see him. He showed me where he put the photo, the framed photo of him and my mom on his 90th birthday in his room. And he also asked me if I could share some of my mother's ashes with him, which, of course, my brother and I have no issues with that. She didn't, specifically say he can't, but I know that she wouldn't have any issues. I think she would have an issue if my dad asked for that. No, I'd be like, no, that's weird, Bob. But he's not asking for that. But my grandfather asking, I was like, of course, no problem. He also mentioned something that I was like, okay, but we don't need to go into that. But like he brought up some stuff that I was like, oh, that's not the way that my mom would recount that story. But okay. Um uh but it just, I think what happened was it wasn't so much about his not being here. It was more about the timing, right? Like I was just feeling so heavy-hearted in seeing him because of that dynamic, this energy, this connection with my mom. It's just so profound. And I know a lot of their history together too, and engaged in it, you know. So I just was feeling like, I don't know, Steven. It's such a weird thing because it's almost like the idea of these things can also get to me, like can really like pull on my heartstrings. The idea of my grandfather dying within a year of my mom passing away. Like for some reason, and I'm like, okay, what beliefs, right? It just like I'm just like, you know,
Well, it's
and
also more, I mean, beliefs less so, I think, than just what I was just saying before, just everyday, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day practice
okay.
of focusing our attention always on what we're
On what we
present.
prefer, right.
Hmm?
On what we prefer to
Yeah,
have.
I mean, we're present to what is. We deal with
My
whatever's.
husband mentioned the same thing. Actually, to something else that I wanted to bring up because this is another thing that came up too.
Okay.
So there, I just, revealed to everyone that I had these thoughts come up about like, oh, I don't want my grandfather to die right now. And also, Steven, here's a part of it too, is that how you was like, because you want more time with him. And I do want more time with him. I just don't feel right now that I want to see him or my father or some people where it feels like, woo, a little charged. I don't know.
So what's wrong with feeling a little charged?
I'm exhausted and I want to feel creative and joyous
Well,
and
so do you know, back to beliefs, do you know what beliefs you're entertaining that are being activated? Because what I'm getting at here, generally speaking, is wow, if I'm with my dad now, if I'm with my grandfather now, there's so much emotion and stuff going on between me and them, and da da da. And I don't want to deal. I don't want to
like with my dad is not as
experience that stuff.
it's not so much. It's
Well,
just that like hanging out at the house, at their homes, like right now, I feel sometimes like too tired, you know? And but look, it's not like that with everyone. So it's not like I'm completely disengaging, like I feel very much at ease hanging out with my brother and my cousin, I don't know. I feel like, am I pacing myself here?
Well, look, only you know deep down what you're doing there. But I just want to finish the thought, which is, if we just said that the first thing we do is be present to what is. What is some beliefs in your system being activated when you're with your grandfather, when you're with your father, or whomever. Doesn't matter whom or when or why. What matters is that thing that you're wanting to avoid has so much juice and information in it for you, about you, that if you are present to it and allow it to be and quote unquote process it through, then it won't get activated anymore. There won't be anything left to, no button to push, no trigger to trig.
Got it.
That's what I'm getting at. So if in a moment in time, it's like, I understand all that, but just not tonight, okay, fine. But if I'm just avoiding that altogether, that's the piece that you're missing.
No, I don't. It's not altogether, for sure. It's
Okay.
not. It's not that.
Just
It's
checking.
not that. I just right now, uh, I'm trying to align. There's a lot going up here.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I'm just trying to align, right?
Well, and there's another piece to this, not to pile on, but it is the idea, again, in our practice, the belief that there are no accidents, that we're right where we're supposed to be, that we are always 100% of the time experiencing something that ultimately serves our highest good. That's the entire reason. That's the whole point of spiritual being, having a human experience, taking that perspective. This is a big, huge, massive difference in the perspective we take as opposed to the perspective other people take, which again, so part and parcel of that idea, well, there are no accidents to anything I'm experiencing, and here's what I'm experiencing now. Some discomfort. There's so much going on, so many things to think about. I'm just trying to stay aligned. That's okay. There's nothing quote unquote wrong with any of that. But again, resistance is, I was going to say, is the name of the game, but it's the exact opposite of that, right? Anytime we're in resistance of anything for any reason, we will exacerbate whatever pain we're having, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever. So again, there's usually not a whole lot of blowback to seeing it, accepting it, not resisting it, and saying, okay, I'm going to do this on Wednesday. I'm going to have a little more time for this. That's fine. But that's very different than, I don't want to deal with all this stuff that's coming up.
Right.
Right. So it's my job
to
just remind.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's what's happening right now.
Good.
I think what I feel is that in the last month and change that I've been here in New York, I've embarked on a pretty involved project in doing the clean now. I mean, it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Very smoothly, actually. In terms of it getting done, and it getting done in a organized way, in a very flowy way. And yet it was very involved. I mean, it definitely took a lot of energy,
Absolutely.
So, and in the middle of all of that were a lot of social commitments, big social commitments. So, I'm coming off a very involved month.
Absolutely. And I get it. And 100. So one thing to do here, not necessarily this minute, but these days for yourself, if I were you, based on what we're talking about right now, is just some general daily talk and tap.
Yes.
Just give yourself the room and space to just let it out while there's so much going on up here. I mean, I'm really holding it together. It's only been 6-7 months. I've done all this, and here's what's going on. Just give yourself and your body the opportunity to release as much of that as you can, and anything you don't need will go. And I know you know that, but that would be, I think, a really good practice to employ in these immediate hours and days.
I agree. And
I feel
like I've been doing that. I feel like I've been doing that a bit, not
keep going, because the idea here is to
more often.
Okay. Well, the idea here is, there's clearly more to go.
Yes.
So that's all that matters. And the idea here is to process in real time, not collect. If it collects and it doesn't move, and it's going to take up resonance in your system, and it's going to fester. That's just energy. Everything is energy, and that's all that's going to happen. So this would be really excellent practice for any of us, any time that there's just a lot going on. There's so much going on. I'm not even sure. I just want to stay aligned. I just want to feel right. I just want to. So just giving voice to all the stuff that's going on, and you said it yourself. So much going on up here. Well, let some of that out. Release valve, and you just talk and tap. You cannot mess it up, and I know you know that. But that would be, to the point where you don't feel like there's so much going on up here.
Yeah, and it's been very sneaky.
All the more reason to do what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's been very sneaky because it doesn't feel like frenetic mental energy, and yet I'm forgetting certain things.
That's what I'm here for, just a big reminder.
Yeah, forgetting certain things and also feeling overwhelmed, like drained.
So yet again, that's all I need to hear to offer up what I just said.
I think there's another piece to that too.
Okay.
Because one way in which I feel like I am transmuting what I felt and experienced as a difficult experience, my most challenging experience in my life thus far. I feel like I am really I'm intending to transmute this into spiritual gain, and inspiration, motivation, right? Like love, like power. And one way in which I'm doing that is this commitment to live well, live really well, which is why I think when I looked at the intention last week after a while of the life intention, I live a life better than I can have ever imagined. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was reading the lines, and it was a very concise paragraph. And I was like, oh, I am not contrast. I'm not aligned with that right now. And I knew exactly where I needed to go with the tapping, right?
Good.
But yes, it's the whole commitment to living well, or what Gay Hendricks was saying, like a commitment to living in your genius. And a part of this feeling drained is not just all the chatter, there. It's also not pouring into myself that creativity, the storytelling, for one. I feel like I'm missing that. And while I haven't been feeling called or inspired
Mm-hmm.
just yet to actually put the pen on the paper or type the stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm feeling more of the call,
Good. And look, bottom
feel
line,
that.
say again.
It feels to me like I need that in my
Well, I was
life.
just going to say, bottom line, just we're here to listen to inspiration. Just because we have all kinds of intentions and things to do every day to cultivate them, if the energy is not there to do it, stop forcing.
Right.
Listen to this. Sometimes, to everything there is a season, and there's a season to just sit down and chill out and relax for a while sometimes, which
What is
nobody
it?
wants to talk about
What
unless they
would
call
you
it self-care.
what would you say to this though? Like I feel like I know this, right? The season for everything because it's such a weird trip for me because I feel like so much in my soul and my heart that I want to do this. I even have like story ideas in my head and characters and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um and I feel all gun ho. Like really like okay,
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes time to actually do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like crickets. Uh, you know. Um that's when I guess that's where the judgment comes in for me, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So when
That's
you
where
say
the
that
judgment,
to me,
yeah. And then
and I,
that's resistance. Yeah. For
yeah,
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
because all I was going to say to that was, so what? And the response is judgment and all
Mhm.
those things, and then you get to see it. Yeah.
Like, oh, you're no, you're not about it. You're a dilettante. You're like you're just like in your mind, like in your fascination with the being a writer, but it's
Right.
like not really a storyteller. It's like,
Now, what I would do though is, you identified something before that you have a shiny, clear intention for your life. You haven't looked at it in a while. You've been dealing with a lot of other stuff for most of the last year. Uh, and then you see it and it's like, yeah, I'm not so aligned with it. So, not forcing it, but to the degree that you feel like you have room, time, and space, say, yeah, I'm not feeling this all the way today. Maybe I can do some tapping and get myself, if not in full alignment, closer alignment. So I would encourage that again without forcing it. But the more you do it and the more aligned we are, the easier and easier it is to hear the inspiration when it
mhm,
comes. And
mhm.
then that moment will come and you'll feel it. You'll be like, okay, here we go. I'm ready to go.
All right.
Listening to inspiration. This is a huge, massive difference in our approach to life and living, right? Most of us are living up here, doing everything from up here, from the head. And what we're saying is, yeah, that's nice. That's a good idea. Works sometimes, works in certain ways. But living from here, from the being part of the human beings we are, listening to inspiration for guidance along the way, it's just an entirely different way to go.
It's more
Uh,
sustainable in
it's
my
far
opinion.
more sustainable. It's
Much
much more
more
long-term oriented.
like,
It's
if my heart is not into something, it's just like it's not working out.
and that's the new consciousness is moving into all to that heart-centered way of being.
But I do wonder, oh, and this is something that I want before we go, I wanted to ask you because I think I know the answer to it. Um, well, before I go into that, I did want to say one last thing about the heart not being into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been feeling like my heart is a little muted. I think I've mentioned this before,
Mm-hmm.
like it feels like I'm like trying to connect to it. And I think there's reasons for that,
Mm-hmm.
it's tender-hearted right now. Um and so I get it, I understand it, but I just would yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the day where like my heart's popping out like
It will definitely.
on fire in a good way.
It will. It already has.
Yeah.
During this time.
I like to feel that. But this last thing, thank you.
Yes.
This last thing. So I was I don't know where I just got into this reflection. But it was about, what remains of my mother. And from the way I've seen it, it's her soul, right? And but it's also, I also have a belief of it kind of going back home into a collective divine. Um so that I was wondering, I just got to wondering like how which is weird, how I should be um seeing this connection, this relationship with my mom right now, because it's not my mom with the body or ego personality. It's the soul signature, right? Like the soul fingerprint is more of what I'm dealing with, that divine energy. And I guess I'm wondering whether, you know, in speaking with her, um, like I've, for instance, and maybe this is what brought it up, is like the light's been flickering in different parts of the apartment. But when I follow up, Ma, is that you? It stops flickering. So I was like, what? I don't know how I should be looking at this because, it's not Doris Poma, right? It's not my mother. It's also the being part of the human being, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
But remember, so the being part of the human beings we are is but a tiny part of the non-physical beings that we are. And from everything I've ever seen or come across over the years, and I'm just one guy, there's still uniqueness to each soul.
Okay.
Whether it's in a body or not. So there's still some uniqueness. I would say that it's a combination, right? So as you connect more and more with her, for sure, well, I would imagine that, and it's been my experience, that you will experience that larger version of her that we just don't see when we're down here in our bodies, right? And yet the connection you have is based on the lives you had here. Well, at a minimum, at the lives you had here. She knows what that is. So I've had that experience as well. Like I came home one day. So because I was immediately having, that's what this book is about, right? Just all the communication I was having with my partner who was dead. And not too long into it, I was like, wait, I came home one day. That's what happened. I came home one day to my house. I'm living alone. And I have a picture of him up, 5x7 picture in a frame. And I just looked at it and I'm like, I put the picture down, put it in a drawer. It's like, I already know you as so much more than this, that this feels like this isn't who I'm dealing with anymore. And yet, it was still 100% him. And the communication we were having was so unmistakably him and me. And our connection was still so unmistakably what it was. And different, but also, enough that I could tell, like, yeah, unmistakable. And now I'm so many years way into it that I still kind of see glimpses of both,
Okay. That just, I'm sorry. When you brought that up about you're feeling one way and seeing the photograph of him here on Earth and how you've been experiencing him after his transition.
Right.
It just made me more aware of the way I feel.
That's exactly it. So when the lights are flickering and you're asking, and she's not going to give you a visual answer, apparently. So what else can you do? You can drop down, as we're saying, into your feeling place and just feel it. What do you feel with that? We're just amateurs here fumbling our way through. I'm 100% amateur, with a little bit of experience. So it's really just anecdotal as far as you're concerned, right? And yet I've also engaged this conversation over the course of 20 years with lots and lots of different people who share, again, all of our all of our experiences are different, and yet there are a couple threads that are similar.
Well, one thing that I do notice is some patterns of when the lights tend to.
Interesting. And what do you see there?
So when I think about a story idea that I've been thinking about, the lights flicker. So that's time, like, is that you, mommy? Are you telling me like that I should go?
Well, and also next time, just like I say, feel your way through.
Okay. Okay, because I start going into my mind about it,
right.
like I'm like, huh?
But for also the reasons but also your mind's crowded right now.
Yeah, yes.
She might not be able to break through
work
in
it
that
out.
way.
No.
And that's why I'm suggesting, use the feeling mechanism.
Sit with it.
Yeah, and see if you notice anything else.
All right.
But I appreciate what you're saying.
I'm glad I brought this up because
I am too.
I didn't think that we would go here.
No, I am too, because I appreciate everything you're saying about that. Like, because I was like, this isn't you anymore.
Standing with my mom, I'm like, who am I communicating with? If there's no ego, there's no body, there's no mom, kind of.
Well, you'll see.
Well, in terms of identity.
I don't know what she will present to you. I also think that they can have a lot of say in how they want to be. It might be that you have like my psychic friend Elizabeth, so she's clairvoyant. That's the first thing she sees. So they present themselves in any way they want. One time my great aunt, who died in her 90s, showed up as her 90 or 40-year-old, little old lady self. And then another time she appeared as a younger version of herself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
That's all I need to know to be like, all right, I'm not going to try and nail something down here, but I'll complete a story about the picture. So yeah, it's so spontaneous. I wasn't thinking anything. I was in that year that I wrote about. We're communicating all the time. And all of a sudden it was like, I'm looking at his picture. I'm like, this ain't you anymore. I'm already experiencing you as a much bigger being, right? And then, pack things up and and spend some years away. And then I come back and I'm opening some boxes and there's that very picture. And that picture in this case, so I go from, yeah, I don't want to look at that anymore. I also was almost feeling quasi like I didn't want to anchor him here.
You know what?
In a weird way.
Okay. Huh.
But then, so fast forward 10, 12, 15 years, and I have occasion to find that picture in a box. And now that picture,
Right, I remember.
Did I tell you this? Yeah. And then that picture was like, oh, hello. And it
conjured up a lot of waves of, yes.
Waves and waves and waves. And we spent a lot of time together that day, that night. And he was hanging out. And I'm like, okay, now the picture's back up. So over the course of time, the picture has gone down. It's come up. It has, it's never an issue or a problem. All to say, I can still, after all this time, experience him as him, even though I know he's like, that life that he lived for 35 years on this planet as my partner, 2 of which were as my partner, it's long gone. It's done over, right? And we'll see.
Wow. Well,
so really feel the lights next time. Notice what you're feeling. Is it warm? Is it just,
yeah, because that light, especially in the bedroom, which is the one that would flicker, was hadn't flickered in a long time.
Well, I love that it's not just one light, because then somebody would say, oh, well, your light bulb
is a bad light. I know.
No,
it could very well have been that because it is the light that when you put the switch on, that's the light, that lamp, it goes to that lamp, lighting up that lamp. So that would usually be the one that would be the more problematic one, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's been happening in the bathroom and sometimes in the living room. So, and I think the kitchen or something. And then we also had one of that, I forget that thing that to make things foamy, like that'll, like to make the matcha foamy.
Whisk.
Yeah.
Oh, you told me that when it went.
Yeah, and it goes on by itself.
Right.
That one hasn't happened in a while, but when I brought it up, it was happening like crazy, like it was startling,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been happening, and I started noticing, what am I thinking, doing, saying when that happens?
Yeah, good.
And it seems to fall right around the time that I'm thinking about this particular story idea.
Now things are getting interesting.
Yeah. I wondering, like, yeah. And I've been on that. And it's one of the story ideas that I have that I haven't put down on paper yet. Like, I have 5 other ones that I wrote up in February when I started feeling inspired I had these story ideas come in, and I just wrote some little short summaries of them, the character, the characters, but then stopped. And I would say in the last month or so, started thinking a little bit more about this new story idea. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of the lights flickering when I think about it.
I'll be eager to hear the next chapter of that.
I know. And so that's why I think I feel sometimes a little like eager to align with that intention. You know what I mean? Like, where I can show up inspired to act, I trust that I'll get there.
No doubt.
The time is right. Perfect time. Well, thank you, Steven, once again. Lots of stuff coming up. I guess, going on to the 7th month of my, since my mom transitioned. She transitioned on November 4th, pancreatic cancer. And Yeah, it's going on the 6th. I mean, it just feels like a lot of these like existential questions are coming up for me right now. Um, it seems pretty intense, but it also seems like it's time.
Yeah. Well, everything in its time.
Yeah. So
All
thank
right.
you, Stephen.
You're welcome. So we'll be back next week.
Next week, and that may be our last session for some time. The following week, I'll be in Grenada.
All right.
Much needed time off. No, tropical island. Caribbean.
Sounds
My
lovely.
peoples. I know. I love the Caribbean. I have a well, okay. I love the Caribbean, period. I have some issues with some things, but um you can't intend for
No, you cannot.
cannot intend for others.
Try as you might.
Exactly. So
All right.
yes, next week,
Cool.
feel free to join us, everyone. We will be back live on YouTube, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Unconventional wisdom on grief and loss. Steven Morrison to my side here, founder, creator of Spiritual Workout, and author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. And I'm signing out, Delilah De La Rosa. Thank you once again, Stephen. Thanks to
Welcome.
everyone. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Suitor.
Bye for now.
Bye.